Okay, so this week we are bringing back Billy Farrell because his first podcast was a huge success, talking mostly things personal. This time we're talking all things marketing and his new business, Mayhem Marketing. Sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy.
Part 1 was all about you. Part 2, let's talk about Mayhem Marketing. So where did the brand originate? Where did it all come from?
Okay, so I'm glad part 1 went well. It was really good fun.
Yeah.
A lot of good feedback.
Good watching it back as well.
Yeah.
And seeing some of the stuff we said. We had a lot of topics, didn't we?
I know.
We did.
I know,
We could
a
have
lot-
been there
we cover-
easily all day.
I know we covered a lot
weekly series,
in an
just
hour.
talking about life,
I know.
It's good. Good 3 minds that are alike.
Yeah.
And things like that. So Mayhem Marketing. So I've been in marketing for the last almost 20 years now. And I've had every high you can think of, every low you can think of, and it's been some adventure. Mayhem itself, at the point of this recording, it is only less than 6 months old, but that doesn't mean it's a startup.
Yeah.
No.
Because we're bringing 20 years experience with us,
Yeah.
and we're also bringing a very accomplished and experienced team.
Okay.
The reason Mayhem started was because our previous company, TMD, which I'm very vocal about, we shut that down last year. We had our best year financially. It was all guns blazing, everything going so well, loving life. And then we took on a couple of clients on a bit of promise, if you want to call it that, and ended up with a 6-figure debt owed when they were liquidated. So naturally, when that happens, you have a few bumps in the road. Add to that a bit of bad luck, some poor decision making because you need to own your shit.
Mhm.
And I got a phone call last year for HMRC. You owe us a couple of $100,000. Pay it today? No. Pay it in 6 months? Like over 6 months?
Yeah.
No. I said, okay, well, you're going to lose it.
Yep.
I'm happy to pay that. I just need 6 months to pay it, and it'll be no bother to cover it. A couple of $100,000 debt, it's fine. No. So I says, okay, well, I'll look at it myself then.
Yeah.
So we did. But I tell you what, it was one of the smartest decisions I could have made, and I think this is good for people to hear as well, because sometimes you build a bit of prison for yourself in business and you don't even realise it.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you tolerate in business and the people you tolerate, the situations and the clients you'll take on and the justifications you'll make in your own mind for where you're at and what you're doing, when you come out the other side of that, you start to realise just how difficult a situation you'd been putting yourself in. And that's another set of lessons there. You'll never stop learning lessons in business. You're always going to be learning and growing.
Yep.
There is no point where you get it absolutely perfect. Even the entrepreneurial celebrities get to the point where they take something on and they screw it up.
Yeah.
You watch the Donald Trump Netflix documentary and he's riding high, he's a billionaire, and then he's standing there publicly saying, aye, the big casino we built, you know, it failed, but we've done a great job.
Yeah.
Now we're going to build another one.
Yeah.
Because that's business.
It is business. It's what we said the last time, it's life. You know, those mistakes you'll carry with you and you'll make them good again. But it's all learning.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
as long as you're learning from it, it doesn't matter.
Always ups, always downs, but
Yeah.
that is the journey. As long as, the way I look at it is you've got a growth trajectory, right? So if this is the growth trajectory, that's never going to happen, right? It's going to be more like this
Yeah.
as you go up, right? As long as it's no like this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? As long as you as a person are generally moving up,
Yeah.
as long as your quality of living, your standard of living and what you're able to produce is going up, your mindset's going up, everything's improving, then you're laughing,
Yeah.
right? And you go through the motions and you go through the journey. That's it. Shit happens. We learn, we grow. So when we shut the last company down last year, I realised that I'd found a level of peace again.
Mhm.
And I get to rebuild more intelligently this time. So we made sure when we shut the company down that not one client was left wanting. Every person that paid us, we looked after every one of them. At my own personal expense, time, money, everything, I looked after everybody. And, you know, I'm proud of how we done it. We helped rehome the staff. We helped people get other jobs. In fact, every person bar one in my new company came from the old company.
All right. Okay.
So it was great because we got to take some people with us who were really performing and who had the same mindset as me, and then build this brand new thing which was lighter and a fuckload more lethal as well. So now we've got a focused team. We're taking on bigger, better jobs, and everything's going the right way.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think out of that, the thing I've took there is the fact that you've said that team is then transitioned with the new company. But I think that probably they people will be with you for life, because if you've managed to look after them
Aye.
and treat them well, in what most would deem as a situation would take them under, and you've managed to transition through, then I think that says a lot about you and the culture and the brand that you've created.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. You've obviously
they're going nowhere.
You've obviously cultured that kind of way within the business that you know your staff kind of come first still.
Oh, aye.
So
Culture's key. Culture's key.
And that builds loyalty.
When we're in Central Scotland, right, the business community is not that big here. People know each other. We know who certain names are. If you've got a bit of a name for yourself, people will talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, thankfully, I can say, hand on heart, the last 20 years, there's no really, you won't really find much negative about me. There's people who've got opinions, there's speculation, there's, you know, judgment
It's always
calls.
the haters, especially on social media, and it's natural.
And it's generally the people who are doing fuck all with their lives, having a moan when somebody else is in the fight.
Yeah.
You know, I've got this tattooed man, the man in the arena.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about that last time.
No.
But the man in the arena is one of my favourite poems.
Okay.
And it's basically about how you've got people who are in the game, who are in the fight, who are getting battered, who know what it feels like to face defeat and get back up again, and who know what it feels like to win against every odd coming against them, right? While the spectators, the commentators, your wee davies kind of tenants are sitting in the audience saying, kick a fucking ball, right? Aye, you kick a fucking ball. Do you know what I mean?
Aye.
Come on.
Aye, go and give it a shot yourself.
So most people in life are spectators, they're passengers. They'll watch, they'll judge, they'll criticise, they'll make comment. But you've got these young fit guys playing the game of football, or these guys in the cage fighting, right?
Yeah.
Or people in business in the arena fighting a good fight.
Getting their hands dirty.
Aye, and we know what it's like to come out and struggle, and we know what it's like to win.
Yeah.
And that's part of the thrill. That's part of the fun. So you're always going to get that. So of course there's people out there who've maybe been unfortunate collateral damage or some decisions or some wins that we've had over the years and everything else. But for the most part, my reputation's pretty solid. And with it being such a small business community, you've got to get it right. So when we closed that business, my first priority was make sure the team are all right, make sure the clients are taken care of, and then grow again more intelligently. And culture is key, like you said. Yeah. So Mayhem itself, where did the name come from? Well, I am Mayhem.
I thought that might have been the case.
Aye. You know,
I thought there might have been a personal part in that.
Oh God, aye. It's funny because my business partner Sarita, she's no Mayhem.
Right.
She's loud, but she's very, much more better put together. But I'm like, fuck it, put it on the line.
Aye, let's go.
Take a risk, let's go. Let's go big, let's make noise.
Yeah.
Why fuck about, why waste time?
Yeah.
You know, and that's where me and her will bump heads sometimes, because she'll be like, right, we need to watch because we're bumping up against capacity here. And I'm like, oh, fuck capacity.
Yeah.
Let's do this, let's go here, let's try that. You know, it's the same when we've done like the big events with your Grant Cardones of the world years ago. It was like, let's bring Grant Cardone to the UK and put him on.
Yeah.
When's he available? 7 weeks' time. Okay. What does he want? Well, he wants at least 2,000 people in London. Okay, fuck it. Let's jump and we'll figure it out in the way down. Do you know what I mean?
I just say yes and figure it out.
Yeah, I think certain things that come your way, to miss that opportunity would be like ridiculous. You just have to just run with it and pray to God that it's all going to work out
absolutely
good at the end, you know?
Yeah. I pray to God, Bill. Well, the thing is, getting the God chat here, a lot of people are asking God to help them. Listen, God gave you everything you needed when you started.
Yeah.
You've got all the tools, the resources, and the opportunity. It's what you do with it that makes a difference.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't ask for help, you say thanks for giving me the opportunity to be this person who can kick ass and get it done. Yeah. And then you fucking get it.
Yeah.
It's all in the perspective of how you look at things, isn't it? You can look at it one way or another way. And
absolutely.
It'll work out for you either way. But I think only looking at it from a positive aspect, it's you can't go wrong.
That's it. So even though the word Mayhem is the name of the company, we're very, very well put together.
Yep.
Very focused, very sharp, very detail driven as well as bold.
Yeah.
But Mayhem just felt right.
Did you put from the last experience where you were saying you maybe went too quick, you built too fast, you built too big too fast? Do you think there was different structures that you've put in place this time that's going to help you?
Aye.
Control that a little bit better?
Well, the interesting thing is, if we hadn't had two of our biggest clients go under last year, none of those bold moves would have been considered a problem.
Yeah.
They would have been looked at like fighting the fight.
Yeah.
This is how it's done. This is the entrepreneurial journey. But because some bad luck happened when we'd left ourselves a little bit exposed.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
But you've got to look back and process and say, where could I have done it differently?
Yeah.
Where were the mistakes? Where were the weak points? And when you've got 7 different departments running and you're taking risks on several fronts and you're building new things and you're reinvesting capital and you're taking on big clients and you're doing it on a bit more of a joint venture and a promise than secure income,
Mm-hmm.
do you know, we left ourselves exposed.
Yeah.
We were vulnerable. And when things go right, when you're in that state, you're a hero.
Yes.
And when they go wrong, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, it's obviously your attitude towards it is very positive, but it is, you know, all round probably a good thing that that's happened, because as you said, even if things had still been going well, this thing that left you exposed, you would have been exposed to it at some point in time. Whereas you said now the lessons learned, the controls are much more tighter.
Aye.
That's not going to happen again, and you're going at a much better pace. How important is, so obviously you and your business partner work well, great as a team, but collectively you're probably different people. Do you think that's, how much of a strength do you think that is?
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Every business partner I've had over the years has been very different for me. Even we're in property. You know, me and my business partner Paul, we grew up together, best pals, and he was driven one way, I was driven another. We were both different minds. We were the same mindset, but different characteristics,
Yeah.
different qualities. So what he brought to the table, I didn't necessarily, and vice versa. With the energy company, again, same mindset, but different people. Me and Sarita, same mindset, same way of thinking, same attitude towards growth and clients and the values that we hold. That's one of the key things. What are your values? What's your mission, your vision, your values? Where are you taking things? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? If you can get in alignment on those things,
Yeah.
and then bring different qualities to the table,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
Which is why, you know, when we do branding workshops with a new client, it's one of the first things that we go into is, who are you? What do you stand for? What do you stand against? What's your mission? What's your vision? Where are you taking this thing? How did it start? You know? And then we want to know who your clients are, what their problems are, what their fears are, what their hopes and dreams are. We want to know all of that, because if you know that level of detail, then you can build something that's going to last, or something that's going to be a hell of a lot stronger. That's the foundations that most people miss.
Yeah.
Most people jump on and go, well, I'm not posting enough on social.
Yeah.
Right, okay, but what structures have you got in place behind that? What foundations have you got in place? Where are you driving that traffic to? Obviously, I was jumping ahead here.
Yeah.
But essentially with Sarita, we have the same values, we've got the same mission, we've got the same end result and goals for the business. So where she's a bit more data driven and is happy to be behind the scenes, ticking boxes and making sure details are organised, making sure the clients are taken care of, I'm out causing mayhem.
Yeah.
Well said.
I think business relationships, personally myself, I treat them the same way as your personal relationships, because they're, as you said, they're built on strengths and weaknesses, and where somebody's maybe not better at something, somebody else picks up, but collectively the whole thing works together.
You're just not shagging them.
Yeah. We better, fuck. We better edit that bit
Maybe,
out.
yeah. I'm pretty sure Gillian will pick that up.
That'll make good content, so maybe keep it in.
Yep.
But
That works.
The-
That
you-
comes round to talking about like how Grant and I work. Grant's more behind the scenes. He's really good at doing like he can do a wee bit of editing. He can do a wee bit. Oh my God! Never mind.
we've got the same mindset.
I just say it though.
Gillian, you've got your work out on this one. Yeah, so Grant's better at behind the scenes stuff. He's quite happy being there, and then I'm doing this bit, but then he gets frustrated because I don't know enough about the other side of things, the socials, and kind of nagging me to do a wee bit more on that. And because I'm so bad at, you know, remembering to take pictures of myself or posting socials or taking pictures when I'm out doing viewings, it's taken a little bit of time to get to that point, but I think I've got it nailed now.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. Yeah.
But see, I mean, see on that, obviously, because, I mean, let's be honest, everybody talks about social media now.
Yep.
But see, from your point of view as a marketing expert, where do you see marketing just now? I mean, because I had a conversation with somebody the other day, somebody who's actually going to come on as a guest who's doing nothing now, complete business, nothing to do with marketing. But anyway, the conversation, as she said, that she went to uni, studied marketing, and by the time she's came out of 3 years of, and you know, she's at the uni, the world of marketing had changed. So everything that she had been taught in the last 3 years was completely
Was irrelevant.
different now. Aye, and what
Yeah.
she said is that she done it at a time where, circa 10 years ago, where social media existed, but then it just, you know, took that boom in terms of it's now a marketing tool as opposed to, you know, posting pictures of your pals a night out.
Yeah.
So everything that she had learned became completely different. Like, where do you see that the strong points in marketing are?
Okay, so I done a video about this recently, about the rate of change as well. When it comes to formal education in terms of marketing, there's a big difference between theory and practice.
Mm.
And a lot of time, the people who will be teaching you this sort of content are getting paid 30 grand a year to store in a classroom and tell you how to be a marketer.
Yep.
Just the same
But don't
with
have any
most
practical on it.
And
things.
then
They've
we're
not got
walk
the
to walk.
practical experience.
Mm.
Or they've got a very corporate view on how it's done. When the reality, and most of the people watching this sort of content here, they're no corporate types. We're salt of the earth, entrepreneur, self-starters, getting on with it and seeing how we get through.
Mm.
We're no corporate types. You know, it's like when somebody's starting their business and they go for funding and they're asked to come up with a business plan, they don't know the first thing about how to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And nor necessarily should you have to. You know, you guys know what it's like. We've been in property, so we raise finance, right? When you raise finance, a lot of the time it's less about the official and more about the relational.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
It's more about the relationships we build. It's about the structure of the deals that we're doing, rather than can you present a fucking 14-page business plan that covers every aspect of everything that, let's be honest, business plans on paper are generally worthless.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never seen a
Just
business
words
plan.
at the end of the day of what you're hoping to achieve.
Aye.
You know, and a very loose idea on how you're going to produce it.
Yep. As Dan Pena said, I've never seen a business plan fail on paper.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right?
They all look fantastic.
And let's be honest with business plans, they are what you hope to achieve.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between planning your war strategy and then being in the fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Much different. You can go in with all the ideas in the world of how you're going to do it, but when you're in the game,
Yeah.
different story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to marketing, big difference between theory and practice, big difference between corporate mentality and entrepreneurial mentality,
Yes.
if you get what I'm saying. And the thing is as well, one of the co-founders of Google in 2006 made a statement that the rate of change in the last 5 years had 100x'd in terms of the amount of information being produced every day,
Right.
right? And he was saying it was frightening at the rate and speed that was going to go at going forward, right? In the early 1900s, the US Patent Office shut their doors because everything that had been created has been created,
Right.
and that there was no possibility of anything new coming up.
Right.
And this was before, you know, any significant jumps in technology. You look at the rate of change today with artificial intelligence and technology, it's frightening.
Yeah.
And if 2006, the rate of change was frightening the founder of Google, what's happening in 2025? You know, as we spoke about and alluded to in the last podcast,
Yes.
people are being replaced by technology and they're celebrating it as if it's a positive thing.
Yes.
We're literally training more replacements, and the gap between the have and the have-nots has never been wider.
Yeah.
It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, of course.
So with marketing, to come back to your question, if we look at the rate of change right now, what worked yesterday isn't necessarily what's going to work today.
Yeah.
We need to look at the tools that are in front of us right now. We need to look at the business that we're talking to. We need to assess where their market is based on what's available today, and then determine a strategy that's going to be effective for that business.
Yeah.
And that's always going to change. In a year's time, we'll have the same conversation, but it'll be like, nah, do you know what? That platform's not the best.
Yeah.
People are shifting in this direction.
Yeah.
So
How do clients who maybe do have the kind of corporate head on take to that information? As you say, maybe something that you have done with them and has proven to work, and you now need to shift the strategy. Are they quite receptive to that? Or do you have anybody giving you any resistance? Or the most you say, listen, you're the expert, you lead the way?
well, a lot of clients come to us because of that. But this is where we shift to a different chat in marketing, personal branding versus company branding.
Yes.
Because if your personal brand's strong enough, for example, doing this podcast right now, you guys know yourself, when you're looking for investment, you're raising finance, it's partly about educating your audience in
Yes.
what's possible. So when I'm having this conversation right now and there's people watching, hopefully this will be educational to them to actually start to change their thoughts a little bit around
Yeah.
it. Because a lot of folk are dinosaurs with their marketing.
Yeah.
You know, I had a roofing company that as I walked in this door this morning, they says, we've got the funds, let's go. So we're going to be doing their brands, we're going to be doing their website, we're going to be doing their social media, their advertising, their video work, all of it.
The full thing.
Okay.
Yes, and I only want clients for life.
Yeah.
Aye, it's good to get a wee client here and there that does a job and then disappears, that's fine.
Mhm.
But I want long-term relationships where we fight for you and we go to war for you to win.
Yeah.
But when it comes to some of the old school mentality around marketing, that roofing company, they were relying on door canvassing
Yeah.
Right.
because they didn't know what else was possible. And they're a young company as well, a couple of young guys running it. But then you've got the older ones, like a facilities management company we took on recently, who are very stuck in their ways, and it's very relationship based.
Mm.
So they're looking and they're starting to realise, well, wait a minute, there's more possible here. You know, it's not that there's one method of marketing that works. They're like spokes on a wheel,
Yeah.
and you're the centre of that wheel. So how can we add more?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Or it's like J. Abraham calls it the Parthenon principle. What keeps the roof of the Parthenon up? It's the columns, the pillars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every time you add another pillar, you strengthen and reinforce the structure. You know, if you've got a table with 3 legs and you sit on the wrong corner, it's coming down. If you put more stability underneath it, you're stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you build in more channels of marketing that are proven to work, and you're using a company like us who are actually experienced in those structures and cut the learning curve and the wasted spend, then we can get you there faster.
Yeah.
So when people hear this sort of stuff and they start to realise, do you know what? There's more business out there, we're just not getting it.
Yeah.
Then that's when the conversation up with us.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what you do for a living, whatever you do for a living, is there more business out there?
Yeah.
Are there other people in your industry that are doing the same work that you're doing? Are they also getting clients? Great. So what that says to me is there's a hell of a lot more business out there. It's just not all coming to you.
Yes.
So unless you find creative ways to make yourself known and to be the first thought on people's mind when they think about what it is that you do, then you're winning.
Yep.
Then you're cleaning up. Then you're tapping most of the market.
Yeah.
I think what frightens a lot of companies, though, is the investment that's involved in marketing.
Yep.
I mean, it doesn't come cheap. And that, so for businesses that are stuck in their ways, they'll be the hardest ones to convert, I would imagine. And then the young ones who are just starting off, have got a limited amount of funding and they'll have roads for that to go already and maybe haven't thought about the marketing aspect. And marketing is expensive. So those two types of people, how do you change their mindset on this is an investment for your future, and it without it, you're not maybe going to be here in 5 years' time if that's your long-term goal.
Aye, it's an investment, not an
Yeah.
expense.
It is, yeah.
Exactly. We were talking about it last night.
Yeah.
Marketing is an investment. It's not an expense. You know, and that doesn't mean that you throw everything you've got at it. It means that you use what you've got and then you reinvest
Yeah.
back into your market, which is what a lot of people don't do.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, a lot of startups and young companies they can't even think about reinvesting because they're basically just trying to pull money from wherever they can to get the next bill covered.
Yes.
Well, I mean, they can't even think about marketing. That's probably not. They'll start with the cheapest form, which is kind of like door-to-door leafleting or putting
Aye, to get
an
by.
advert in
Yeah.
checkatrade.com or whatever, something
Aye.
small, but that'll hinder their growth.
Correct.
So that is the whole crux of it comes down to, spend it on your marketing first. I spoke to Grant about this and a couple of people actually recently that when we started off in property, I would have known what I know now. I would have done it entirely differently. I would have
Okay.
spent the money that we had at the beginning
Aye.
Yeah.
purely on our marketing.
You've hit a good note there.
But the problem with that then is it kind of throws you in at the deep end, because if you're also starting in a business where you've not got a lot of experience, you're still learning on the job, you're frightened to drive you're actually fearful of driving a lot of traffic to you
Yeah.
because you're going to go, oh, I'm going to know
How
enough
do
to
how do
actually...
you handle all this business
How
coming
am,
my
I,
way?
how am I going to handle it? And I'm going to look like a complete plum if I say the wrong thing, So it's a double-edged kind of sword. But I would think now that any advice that I would be giving anybody would be just go with it, because you will learn. I think now you'll
Yeah.
learn quicker if you
Aye.
just
And you'll get the,
do it that
the
way.
growth quicker.
you'll get the growth quicker.
You're
Yeah,
hitting all the high notes here, Lynn.
yeah. No, I'm doing quite well today. It's the tea.
Everything you're saying, I'm thinking, God, that's a big conversation. What is it they say? You pay cheap, you pay twice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I see a lot of people who come to us and they'll say, oh, do you know what, the investment's just a bit much. And then they'll go away. Do you know what happens? A year later, they come back.
Yeah.
Because they paid their sister who builds websites to do their website for them. Come on. Do you know what I mean? Or they got their wee pal to do their ads, or they done somebody a favour, or they get a cheaper company to do it. But listen, expensive doesn't always mean better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's about looking in and understanding who you're dealing with and what they're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
You know? But one of the notes you hit on there that I think is very relevant to what we're talking about here. So I shut a company down last year, a marketing company, started a new one up right after it, and within 4 to 6 weeks we had 6 figures worth of contracts. Tell me a startup that does that. They don't, right? What's the difference? Mindset.
Yeah.
It's who you are going in.
Yeah.
So you take the average person who's had a net worth of $1 million plus, they lose their money, but they built that for the, in fact, let's start again. Take the average lottery winner.
Yes.
Statistically, within 3 years, the average lottery winner is worse off than
Yes.
they were before they had the win.
Yeah.
And then people for your community go in and buy their houses.
Yeah.
But you take that into account, you look at the average person who's came for nothing, built $1 million plus net worth, and they lose it, what happens again? Well, they go out and they figure out a way to do it again, because you've
rebuild
done it
it.
before, you can do it again.
Yeah.
If you've got a standard in your head that says, I'm used to earning this amount of money, you go out and recreate that.
Yeah.
Was it the wealth thermostat that we talk about? We've all had that kind of chat before,
Yeah.
right? Family member of mine years ago was going for a job, and they says, oh, but the wage is $2,500 a month. I'm like, that, right, great, you're go and get it. I've never earned more than 2. I'm like, give a fuck, like, great, good, it's an opportunity. If you look at job applications, this is another study that was done. Let's say you take a job, you take the same job description, and you put one in one website, and the wage is 25 grand. You put another same description in a different website, and the wage is 50 grand. More people will apply for the same job at 25 grand than they will at 50, because they feel like an imposter at that
Yes.
level because they've never earned it before.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if we flip that and we say, okay, you've earned this kind of income before, you've been used to that, you've been through this experience, when you start again, you're not fucking about.
Yeah.
So if we come back to what we were talking about a minute ago, when it comes to marketing, the savvier of the business people who know how the game works don't see marketing as an expense. They know that their expertise is property or commercial cleaning or X, Y, and Z. So they want to focus on what they do, and then they want to recruit the support of an agency who know what they're doing so that they can leave that part to them.
Yep.
And they know that if they can come up with the funds to put that to work, then they'll have a better brand, a website that looks good, positions them, meets their market and converts, and then the traffic sources that are actually going to bring in the business. And another note you hit on, sorry, I'm trying to catch up with all your notes here. Right? I'm
I
trying
don't
to
normally make
mentally
as many.
block this. Everything you were saying there was triggering me, and I'm like, fuck, that's another thing I need to remember.
Another thing I need to remember.
I know. Nap's gone now. It's gone.
Oh,
Nap, welcome
Um,
back.
I would have done the whole thing differently and done the. And you're frightened to bring too much traffic to you at the beginning if you're a
Well,
startup.
that's it. That's right. That's what I was going to say
Yeah.
there. Right. I would rather have the problem of too much business coming in and not knowing how to handle it
Yeah.
Right.
than having a perfectly operating system, processes, procedures, systems, finance, all the moving parts,
Yep.
and having no business
Aye,
coming
no
in.
customers.
That's true.
Because if you've got no customers, you're done.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you've got limited or average foundations that you can build upon fast, but you've got the business coming in, then even if you can't fulfill it, guess what you can do? You can pass it on
Yep.
That's
and take
right.
a commission.
Yes.
Sometimes that's actually a very smart way of doing
Yeah.
it. It's a home improvements company that I know. And the guys that ran the company bought a multi-million-pound company, subcontracting all the work.
Right.
Mhm.
It was only a couple of guys that were doing it,
Yeah.
right? And they had this massive brand. On the face of it, they looked huge,
Yeah.
subcontracting every penny or every job, until the point when they had a level of security and predictability around what they were doing that allowed them to have books in
Okay.
with their
Right.
team. So when we started doing deals, packaging deals, it was more a case of find the opportunity. We're not in a position to buy it.
Yeah.
We were young guys. We weren't in a position to buy the deals.
Yeah.
We weren't even in a position to do the refurbs, or certainly the level of refurbs that you could do.
Yep.
So what we done was we packaged it up, we secured it, put a pretty bow on top, and sold it to an investor for X thousands of pounds.
Yep.
You know, and then when we get a bit more savvy, we would start project managing aspects of it and get involved in deeper levels. and then you start to build a team. So
Yeah.
I would rather have more opportunity coming in that I can't handle and find ways of passing that on,
Yeah.
building goodwill or taking commission and taking what you can handle, cherry picking the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having too much business coming in is never a problem.
Yeah.
Having no business coming in but being perfectly prepared for nothing, then you're in trouble.
You've got a big
Yeah.
problem coming your way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Well, like I say, I would, knowing what I know now, I would definitely do that strategy.
I think you hit the nail on the
At
head
the
the last time. You're like, right, are we going for this or no? Are we fucking about or no? And I think that's the mentality of what is it you're looking for? Are you wanting a wee, your quiet, easy life with the minimum income, whatever? Are you fucking we going for this year? You know, there's only really the two options.
Do you know, see, even the idea of going for this, I can already hear some people in their heads right now watching this, sit and think, but you've got to, this is your ma talking, right? So you've got to walk before you can run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to take your time. But, you know, enough is good
Bite
enough.
enough more than you can chew.
Bite enough more than you can chew. I'm sorry, you're not talking to me, you're talking to yourself here. There's a big fucking mirror between me and you're talking to you. I don't hear you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking differently. But this is what I was going to touch on now. I don't want that much business coming in right now. Or, you know, we'll walk before we can run. Okay. So let me ask you a different question. How far does 100 grand get you in business these days? How much is that actually worth? Turnover's vanity, profit's sanity. So when you actually look at the amount you've got coming in versus what's required to create that, it's two very different worlds.
The scale is...
Yep. And a lot of the time you're running in a minus or borrowed funds before you actually get into the healthy profit zone, before you get on shore. You know, you're fucking head above the water trying to get by for a long time while you're hustling your way through deals. And you know the deals are going to come good.
Yeah.
But you're still struggling to breathe while you're fighting your way through it.
Yeah.
So the idea that you can just trickle by and be happy on a limited amount isn't really relevant in business because the reality is, in order for you to fulfill some of the business you're taking in, you need team.
Yeah.
You need team, you need systems. God, our subscriptions to different software and platforms is over $3,000 a month alone on the basics. And then you've got your running costs, you've got all the different aspects of running a business, you've got office, you've got equipment, you've got people, you've got third parties you need to pay, you've got insurances you need to cover, you've got your tax to think about, VAT to put away, then you've got staff, then you've got equipment, then you've got fucking fuel cards, and then you've got all that shit to think about, right? So you either stay a one-man band and be happy because it's not a bad place to be, but run on what you can have your personal capacity operate at, or what you do is you realise, nope, if I'm going to play this game, it's not as simple as my mother's telling me to walk before you can run.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shit to think about and I need to create a fuckload of business coming in and very quickly have lots of sleepless nights on trying to figure out how to handle it.
Yeah.
Because see this idea that you start your own business and you clock off at 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't.
Mine's always gone.
Aye. That's the dream getting sold in social media. When the reality of is somewhat different. That's a dream to get views on content for a lot of people. And it's very misleading because the wee guy or girl who wants to start a business is potentially going into business or whatever that looks like based on something they think it's not. And then when they get there, that world is completely different.
Yeah.
As you said, the chances are you're probably going to be running a loss for quite a bit of time and just investing everything back in. But yet to the outside world, is a lonely place because there's an expectation straight away that you're the man, you've made it. But the bank balance for a lot of time doesn't reflect that.
Yeah.
Aye.
I think there's a lack of support though out there for people who are starting off on their own because, you know, you can't even walk into your bank now if you've got a business account and hopefully speak to a business manager that's going to give you some advice. You've got Business Gateway who can help you to a degree. And that's where I think that you've got to have, whilst you're maybe a one-man band or whatever, or you're growing slowly, you've still got to have that kind of support network about you that if you are struggling, you've got somewhere to reach out to and go, like, I'm stuck here. Who can help me? Like I've reached out to Alan about my social media analytics and said, right, somebody needs to help me on how to work this because I don't know what I'm doing.
You're absolutely right. Having a support network's key. One of the problems, though, is not knowing who necessarily is going to give you the best support.
Exactly.
So when I was first getting involved in the property world, I remember speaking to the only person in my extended family who'd ever been successful financially. A guy had built a multi-million-pound flooring company, and he was like my nana's cousin. And I remember speaking to him, and I admired this guy so much because it's like, come for Govan, created something special. I need to learn.
Yeah, you're like the pinnacle of where I want to go.
Absolutely. And I remember, I love this guy, he's brilliant, right, to this day, so there's nothing negative here whatsoever. But I remember speaking to him about it, and I says, I'm thinking about going down this road. He's like, fucking mugs game. Don't waste your time, you're never going to make any money. A year later, I moved in 2 doors down for him. Right? So you would think that somebody who'd scaled to that height financially would be somebody you listen to, but not necessarily.
Yes.
So everybody's got their own industry knowledge and experience. It's the mindset of people that I want to capture. It's the thinking. It's how do you think? How do you process life? How do you look at the world? That's the bit that I'm interested in. So a lot of the things that I listen to in terms of content and audiobooks and whatever else isn't necessarily instructional. It's mindset.
Yeah.
I want to listen to winners. I want to listen to how they process thoughts, and I want to take from that. Because that kind of fuels everything that drives the more articulate decisions. After that.
There's certainly I think a generational aspect from that point of view as well, because some of the best advice I was given, and something that always sticks to me, is never listen to your parents. Because they were born in a different era, at a different time, with a different mindset. You know, the stuff that we spoke about the last time, most of them were born in a generation of you working a job and then you put it towards your pension, and don't worry, your pension will look after you, as we touched on the last time. So, and to be fair, it's something I've took in that I think probably maybe my kids as well maybe shouldn't listen to me when 20 years down the line, because for the same thing, I was born in a different time, in a different generation, and things have moved on. So you're right what you're saying, even though maybe somebody on the face of it could be successful, they might not be driving the correct information to steer you in the right direction based on the knowledge that they've gained over time.
So the school system, for example, right? Would we agree that we spoke about this last time? Would we agree the school system's dated?
It's knackered. Let's be straight to the.
Let's get right to the point.
There's no bones about it.
You've got a 25-year-old lassie who's got the same relationship problems, money problems, and life problems, teaching your brains how to think. Right. What I find valuable at school isn't necessarily the knowledge that they gain, but the learning and how to think.
Yes.
The creative problem solving, the stimulating your brain. You know, and when it comes to business, it's the same for me as well, and with kids too. I want to teach my kids how to think, how to process, how to look at the world a little bit differently. You know, so one of my daughters says to me a while ago, I want to be a vet, but she also wants a Porsche.
Yeah,
she's 9, by the way.
Yeah,
lovely wee girl, and you know, it's she for some reason she just loves Porsches. I don't know why. Right?
That's her thing.
Aye, so part of my job is to teach her that that's not going to make you happy. That's just a reward that you get to pat yourself in the back on along the way. Right. But if you want to be a vet and you also want a Porsche, then you better own the practice. Right. Because the two, a lot of people don't realise Porsche's priced in at the same level as Ferrari sometimes. They're expensive cars. Right. But they're also a bit more mainstream. It's bizarre.
You know.
But I was trying to explain it. I says, well, so you want a Porsche then, right? I want a Porsche. Where do you want to live when you're bigger? Somewhere like where this person in your family lives, or somewhere like where you currently live. I want to stay up here. Okay. Do you know how much it costs to live up here? No. This, do you know how much a vet makes? And then I'll sit and I'll work it out with them. And then they're sitting looking at me like that. Well, you can't live here and drive a Porsche if you're a vet. I says, I know. But you can be a vet and own the practice. And if you own the practice, then other people can help you. Then you can lots of vets run about you. And then you can do this, that, and that. And she's like, oh, okay, I see. I get it.
Just having a different way of thinking. It's like thinking outside the box, but teaching them it early. Because right now they're thinking, I think the school just makes them think inside the box all the time. You know, you've got to do it this way. This is the way it's always been done.
Back to the Matrix, Lynn.
You know, and it just doesn't work that way anymore.
That's it. The schooling system, you've hit the nail on the head. The schooling system is not educating. If you say I want to be a vet, the schooling system is not going in with that approach that you need to own the practice. They're going in with the approach of you'll be successful if you're a vet, right? Or whatever that looks like, or if you're a doctor or whatever. Now, those jobs are hard jobs, tough jobs. Quite frankly, I think if you're a doctor, you're underpaid for, you know, what you do.
And
right?
teachers.
Yeah, exactly. All these people
are
underpaid. Now, there might be people listening to this who think, What I'm going to say is, you know, if you're a consultant or something like that, you're on 6 figures, that's not enough to drive the life that we're certainly would like and
Agreed.
require and aspire to. But yet the schooling system is saying if you get a job and you make 100 grand a year, you are set for life. That ain't going to set you for life. So unless you're doing the practice, then you've got a bit of a problem coming.
Aye.
You know, and I think a lot of these corporate jobs, and again, I can only talk from my experience, it's only my opinion, I think they're traps. I've been in the trap of you get to 6 figures and, you know, you're the man. But then to get to that in these corporate jobs, you've got to literally dedicate your life to that job. Whereas if you just dedicate the same amount of your life to doing it for yourself, you're going to make that tenfold.
Yeah. There's
And
a lot
quicker.
lot of risk as well with having a career path as opposed to an entrepreneurial mind, because you know, there's one of my clients is a high level insurance broker, right? And he deals with critical illness and death and everything else, right? And he was talking to me about like a lot of higher paid professionals. So let's say you get your footballers, right? When do most footballers' careers end? They're mid-30s.
Yeah, it'll be a young
Right.
age.
So they make all their money at first. Now, are they, you know, are most footballers kicking about and saving that money up and being smart with it? No, not necessarily, right? Let's say you've got a very skilled surgeon, right? What happens if that surgeon breaks his hand?
Yep.
Yeah.
What happens to his career, his ability to earn? What if you've got a pilot who is very well paid, who starts to have problems with their vision? Right? A guy I know got glaucoma and he can barely see. He was registered blind within 24 hours. I think everything was fine.
Yep.
Right? Things happen in life.
Yep.
And if you have a good career that you spent 6 years studying and lots of years of experience and building yourself up, that's a fantastic thing. But you're also at the mercy and risk of life itself and
Yep.
what could possibly happen. So this is why I believe personally that having that ability to think, to create problem solve, to think your way through things and come up with solutions.
Yep.
What are we as entrepreneurs if not creative problem solvers?
Exactly.
We fix things, we identify problems and we come up with solutions to their problems. That's what keeps us safe in life, you know? So you're definitely a lot more risk in different ways.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a 6-figure income.
Yep.
I think it was Rob Moore posted the other day that if you earn 100 grand a year, you're actually better off in terms of tax than if you earn 150 grand a year. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's nuts, right?
Yeah.
And you go and look at his post and you'll see the data that he posted to back that up. But you're actually taking more home when you're earning 50 grand or less.
Yeah.
When you look at the tax brackets and how the other aspects come into play.
Yeah.
Right? 100 grand a year. Let's say that's your level, 100 grand a year, right? So that's £8,333 a month. You're taking your tax rate off the top of that. Then you've got your cost of living,
Yeah.
right? But if you're earning that kind of money, you're a professional, you've probably got a family as well.
Yep.
You're probably not driving a Ford Fiesta.
Yep.
Or whatever car, you know,
Yeah.
people, I don't know, whatever car people are kicking about in these days, you're probably not driving that. You're probably not living in a scheme flat,
Yes.
right? You're probably doing all right, which means as your income grows, so does what? Your
Your
expenses,
expenses.
your outgoings,
Yeah.
right? What happens when you hit a bad patch? What happens even in business when your business starts to struggle? What happens when you run into problems? What happens when COVID comes up and nobody sees it coming? And suddenly the people who can't afford to live on 100% of what they take home are now forced to live on 80% of that or less, right? What happens when you've got a 2-person household with an income and then one of those people is no longer able to earn? This is all the stuff that people don't think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, being that entrepreneur, being that creative problem solver and creating your own luck in a world that's replacing people with technology,
Yeah.
that's a safer bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
would
you need to
agree.
be fucking smart about it. You need to get the right support run about you. You need to learn the game that you're going into. Go into it with your eyes wide open that you need to hustle, you need to learn, you need to grow. And you need to be investing in your education. You need to be investing in support, peer group, the people around about you. You absolutely need to be investing in your marketing, your growth, your brand. You know, I know this was supposed to be about branding and marketing. Maybe we can
Yeah.
shift back that way. But if you look at your average business, spoke to a couple of businesses yesterday. One was the roofing company we're just taking on. Another was a commercial cleaning business, right? And I says to the guy who runs the cleaning company, he says, my website looks all right. I says, aye, it does look all right. But it looks the exact same as every other company out there that's doing the same thing as you,
Yeah.
right? But you're telling me you want to grow beyond them, yet you're performing at the same level as them on the face of it. So what do we do when we search Google? Let's say you're sitting at your computer and you search something on Google. Do you open up one option and go with that option? you open up maybe 10 different tabs. Is that fair? Am I
Yep.
saying
Yeah,
this?
no, I agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. Aye.
Right. And when you open those 10 tabs, what do you do with those tabs just as quickly as you open them up? You shut them back down.
Mhm.
And then you're left with a couple of options. Would you guys agree
Yeah, I
with
would
that?
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it that made the difference for the options that you kept open to be the ones that you kept open? And why did you close down the 8 or 9 or
Those.
10 other businesses that were out there?
Yep.
Why? There's a number of aspects. And generally it comes down to your message to the market,
Mhm.
relevancy, and the quality of your brand, the look and the feel of what they see, right?
Yep.
So I said to that guy, when people are looking for what you do, and there's other people out there who look a lot more professional, agile, on the ball, affordable yet professional at the
Mhm.
same time, with the quality of their brand, with the load time of their website, with how it looks, with how it feels to the customer, with the message. I want people to land on your website and think, this is exactly what I was looking for.
Mhm.
I want them to look on your website and feel that this is exactly what they were looking for through what they see and what they absorb.
Mm.
I want the message to the market to be so clear and simple that when customers go there, they can either watch your video and see you talking and see your team and put a face to the name. They can see what you stand for. They can get the information they need very, very quickly in a structured manner. Then that website's built to convert,
Mhm.
as opposed to the way it looks right now,
Yeah.
where you're just another person doing the exact same shit and looks the exact same as every other business out there.
Yeah.
It's a massive difference. So if we can tweak the quality of your brand
Mm.
to meet the market at the level you want to be seen, and we can create a website for you that actually converts and positions you the way you want to be seen,
Mm.
and gives people the information they need when they come back from wherever that source is.
Yeah.
And then we can drive the appropriate traffic to that site while putting you on the map on social. You rise above the rest of the market.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
become the 5% at the top. You become one of the options that people can't turn down.
Don't turn down.
Yeah.
Don't
Exactly.
turn off. Yeah.
And guess what? People pay more for expertise.
Yes.
They pay more for specialism. So when you can present yourself as a specialist provider, as somebody who's at the top of the market, people will actually expect you to charge more
Yes.
than the guy with a shitty wee website who looks like a one-man band
Yeah.
in a van kicking about
Yeah.
doing his
Yeah.
thing.
And suddenly at that point in time, price isn't an issue.
Exactly.
When-
Because people
when
want
it's-
quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of, I had a conversation with somebody recently and we're talking about price and say, I don't think you should be charging that. And then it was justified for all these that you just said. But I think sometimes people, when they're starting off, they have a fear that they don't think they should be maybe charging what they think they should.
They don't feel they're worth it. right
Yeah,
at the beginning.
exactly. Maybe
Yeah.
that worth. However, as you said, if you're displaying all of that value, then you're absolutely, and you've justified your value through all the means that you've just spoke about, then price doesn't become an issue.
That's
Price
where
has
it
only
all-
become an issue as you say you've got to be shitty website and you don't, and it doesn't look professional, and then that doesn't look as if it's worth that. But if you're providing a lot of value, the price is never an issue. Price should never be an objection.
I think it all comes back to your belief again, doesn't it? In you, you have to invest in you first,
Yeah.
and then the rest kind of follows. So
Absolutely. You're right. That's the starting point.
yeah,
And then when it comes to the value you actually provide, so, for us as a marketing company, if somebody pays us X thousands of pounds for their website and their brand, and then they come on in a monthly retainer at X for their ongoing social and ads, how do I justify that price? Well, it's very simple. If you spend £1 with us and you make 10, is that a good investment? Absolutely. So that's how I justify my value. And there's how you, watching this as a business owner, justify yours.
Yeah.
Listen, you'll always have the commentators, the spectators have an opinion on what you're charging and how you're doing things, and that's far too much, and have you thought about this? And it's always well-meaning advice for people who've got no fucking place sharing it.
Yeah.
It's like your uncle the janitor telling you how you should run your property business. What the fuck do you know? It's the same as the person who's overweight telling you what diet you should go on. You should fucking go on it. Do you know what I mean? You try it. Like, come on. It's the fat personal trainer. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Live your talk.
Yeah.
That's why social and personal branding comes in well as well. Because if you become a message to the market in who you are, then people buy you before they buy what you're selling.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have a faceless corporation that does the work. Fantastic. But if you're a young, more agile company in the late 6 figures, early 7 figures, putting a face behind that brand, it's really a question of how fast do you want the results.
Yeah.
And when you're able to put yourself out there in a way that actually meets the market, establishes credibility in the right way, can do very, very well.
Yeah.
A lot of people do the personal branding stuff very wrong though.
Yeah.
They make themselves sound or look exactly where they in their head think they are. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes it's not what's said, it's what's seen.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got somebody takes a picture with somebody else's Aston Martin.
Yes.
Right. All you're telling me is that car's a big deal to you. You've never owned one. You can't afford one. And one day you want to.
Yeah.
Right. When the reality is getting a car like that, when you've actually got a company, isn't the biggest stretch. In fact, it's a marketing cost.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? When you think about it like
Yeah.
that. So somebody can put that up and instantly position themselves right back down where they don't want to be seen.
Yeah.
You know, but personal brand is a whole other conversation.
Aye, they're having
Get that if you want.
Yeah, well, in fact, I'm going to touch upon, first of all, what's your opinion on a company name? I'll tell you why I asked the question, is because somebody well known once said to me, the name of your company does not matter,
Aye.
right? Like, it's completely irrelevant, right? It doesn't matter, right? However, and again, I know I'm talking on the smaller scale here, right? See, if you look at, for example, these dessert shops that are popping up all over the place,
Everywhere.
right? Everywhere, right?
Queues are massive.
Aye, and they've all got, like, for example, the one next to me, I think it's For
The
Fudge's
dumbest
Sake. Aye, the one down the road's Corey No Day That, right? They've all got catchy names, but see if it just said Wee Jimmy's Dessert Shop, right? I don't think I would be inclined to go to the place.
Aye.
So that's almost having the conflicting opinions. Like, what's your opinion on
Depends
the
what
importance
business
of
you're
it?
in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depends what business you're in. There's also a trading name and then your company
Yep.
name as well.
Yep.
So in terms of two different things sometimes, you know, you can have a company name registered in Companies House that's not actually that linked to the trading name that you
Yes.
operate under.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I own hundreds of websites. You know, we've got fixtureads.com,
Right.
right, which is an offshoot of Mayhem Marketing,
Mm-hmm.
but the brand is Fixture Ads.
Yep.
Right. So that works. And in that sense, that business name does matter.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
But if you are doing so let's say if you're talking about the property world here,
Mm-hmm.
for example, the name of your company doesn't necessarily matter.
Yep.
Because it is just a corporate entity.
Yes.
But the name of your website that you're using to source property does matter.
Yep.
The name of the investment arm of your business does matter.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course, aye.
Even like take TMD media. Right? The word media can mean many things. It can also mean nothing.
Yes.
Right? It's a bullshit word that I wish I'd never used.
Yep.
Whereas the word marketing on my company now says to the world, they do marketing.
Yep, this is what we
Yeah.
do.
So there's no question.
Yep.
Yeah.
I put a hat on and I've got TMD media on it or XYZ media.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Aye.
My cameraman for STV? What is it I do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? If I put Mayhem Marketing on it, you know that we're a marketing company.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Yep.
So in that sense, some businesses, it doesn't really matter. In terms of a corporate entity, it does not matter. On the face of it, in terms of your trading name, it actually does matter.
Yeah.
It really does matter. Because something catchy, something that people can remember, something that's relevant to your market is key
Yep.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's quite difficult when you're just launching yourself into business at first, because I think having your
Try to get it
business
perfect.
brand and getting
Yeah.
it and then doing your personal branding, it's quite a grey area for a lot of people, and it's knowing how to do it properly.
Aye.
That's the hardest bit, I think.
Your personal brand's Lynn McMaster, you know? So
Yeah.
you are you,
Yeah.
and you just need to be the best version of you. One of my mentors says to me, he says, you create the person you admire most and then give that person to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You'll live your message. You become the living embodiment of what it is you're preaching. Because
Yep.
it's a total mismatch if you're talking one way and then living a totally different or operating a totally different way.
Yeah.
You know? So your personal brand, we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah.
Your company name and brand and all the rest of it. Look, if you're in property, which I know you're a large part of your audience is, and you're getting into trading, great. Just start where you are.
Yep.
You know, start now, get perfect later. You know, and if you're putting up some sort of marketing, then, you know, it helps to have maybe the location of where you're marketing in the name. That can help.
Mm-hmm.
It can help to have a buzzword or a catchy name for sure, but it shouldn't stop you from getting going when it's something that can be changed later.
Yes.
Whereas if you're starting a shoe company, right, or a hat business or something like that, then having a name that's relevant to what you're offering is very important.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Where do you Because personal branding, it's not a new thing, but it's a fairly new thing. Whereas before, marketing and advertising in the historic world would have been just solely like,
Who's your
targeted towards
business?
the company,
Yeah.
Aye.
right? And the person behind the company, probably wasn't seen unless you looked in company's house and knew their name. So see for because a lot of these big corporate, organisations now are starting to showcase a lot of senior people on social media. So they're starting to come to terms with, well, what is marketing now? But again, I know it'll be relevant to different businesses, but where is that shift came from in terms of the personal branding? You think that's predominantly social media channels?
Well, aye, definitely social media for sure. Public speaking, social media, podcast appearances and all the rest of it, right? So for example, if you were looking for a marketing company, you would Google it, you'd find us and other companies as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're interested in listening to a business podcast, or you see some baldy guy with a beard saying something that you relate to on TikTok one day, and then you follow him down the rabbit hole, then you start to realise what you don't know, and that personal brand becomes a connection in a business deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
People putting senior members of staff and so on their website and so on. It's the power team. Part of that's the power team. A lot of what you see on social is perception building rather than reality based. Right? Perception's a smart thing to follow. So for example, you can borrow credibility. So, there's a guy I know who buys companies, and he gets involved at a certain level, and then his goal is to sell that company for a life-changing exit, or help the business owner create a company that sets them up for life, and then he takes his exit. So what he's now doing is he's formulating a power team. I'm part of that team. There's a financial guy part of that team. There's the marketing guy, me's part of that team. And there's a couple of other heavy hitters involved. So when he's looking at acquiring a company, and that company owner looks at his power team and they see that on the board, the non-executive board, you've got Billy, who runs marketing companies. You've got Craig, who's a financial wizard and a CFO for a space exploration company, right? And then you've got these other big characters. Do you feel that that's a safer bet with that company investing in yours?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if it was just Joe who was investing in your company, that might be a bit more of a riskier proposition.
Yeah.
So you're creating the perception. And of course, it's got to be backed by value.
Yep.
Putting out your higher ranked members of your team and so on can really help to show people that they're in good hands and there's good experience and backing there.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, when you're a personal brand, it comes down to you.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How do you live? Are you congruent with your message? Are you giving value? For me, it's less about trying to appear perfect and more about building a self-built pedestal and serving the market before money changes hands.
Yeah.
It's like I ask nothing when I share on social media. I rarely even put a call to action. I'm giving value. Maybe being a little bit entertaining sometimes, sharing a bit of chat, sharing some value. And then if people feel that they know, like, and trust you, and you also know what you're talking about, then you're good.
Mm-hmm.
So we know Davey Hutton, right?
Yeah.
Davey's a friend of mine, and I remember talking to him years ago on a podcast we done about how he dresses and how he shows up. Because Davey's, he's a pirate. He's out there.
He's just one of the cool guys that I think most people would
he's
love
a
to.
brilliant human being, a very smart guy. But he wears eyeliner, dresses like a parrot. A parrot always misses a parrot. Reggie on the car, big gub.
Yeah.
Lives in a castle, all the rest of it. So you've got Davey, brilliant guy, right? And I remember talking to him about this, and I can't remember the exact way he phrased this, but it was something along the lines of, if you look like me and you talk sense, you're a legend. But if you look like me and you talk shite, you're an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's quite good.
That's very
so
good.
if you're vocal and you're out there, but you can back it up with the goods, then people will start listening.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're making noise for the sake of making noise, but you're giving no value, then you're actually creating a different picture around yourself.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
That's very good. I like that.
It all comes down to, again, about how well you know your product and how intelligently you can speak about what you're trying to sell.
Yeah, because I think there's you said it right at the start. Mayhem Marketing is, in terms of that particular brand, is fairly new, but backed with 20 years experience, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of people and fair play to them, especially through social media channels, are making it a lot quicker than they would without those channels.
Yeah.
And that's great. But they then don't have the 20 years worth of experience to back it. So they may have a big following and maybe able to showcase to the world what we do, but they don't have that experience in the back of it. So I would rather work with a situation the likes of yourself is forget the history of the company, but what can the company bring to me?
Aye.
There's a lot of that going about just now because people can and will make it a lot quicker through these channels.
Aye. And that's, do you know what? Unfortunately, it's a sad reality of business. Mayhem might be a new brand, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why
that's what you're bringing to the table is your experience.
That's why I've got to have my face on it.
Yeah.
Because without my face on it and the network that I've built over the years, who are we?
Yeah.
We're just another marketing company.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So fortunately and unfortunately. Fortunately, you've got these channels where you can build that idea of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there are many people who are doing that but don't have the goods to back it up.
Yeah. And that's
And that's where it becomes difficult for people to know who to go with.
And then you make bad decisions. You invest in the wrong people. You invest in the wrong mentors, the wrong support group. You buy into somebody because of what they show on the face of it, but the reality is very different. And I don't really know that there's much we can do to change that.
Yeah.
Company's House won't tell you anything you need to know.
Yeah.
And social media is an illusion.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, people show you their best side, not their real side.
Yeah.
So that's why, for example, as a personal brand myself, when we hit rocky times last year, the first thing I done was I went on and I recorded podcasts about it. I put out 5 days of daily podcast on my podcast, and I talked about what we were going through. I talk about mental health challenges. I talk about depression. I talk about autism and dealing with my kids and some of the things that we go through as business owners, because that's real.
Yeah,
and people can relate to it, and then there's no bullshit, there's no airs or graces. If you know something, that means because I told you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're that raw and that real, and you've also got the goods to back it up, people trust you a bit more because there's nothing you're trying to hide. Whereas when people try and put across nothing but the best side of themselves, yes, you will get a level of more naive audience who buy into that and then realise their mistake later. You get me?
Yeah.
So it's a tricky one, and there's not really much we can do about it.
Yeah.
So I guess when you're making a decision on who to actually go with, look at the work they've done, look at the quality of their reputation, look at how real they're being in themselves and as a company, and go for there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's unpack something here, right? Which is probably a big conversation that you've touched on there. The autism, ADHD, right? Now, it's everywhere. There's a lot of people I know myself in my circle.
Yep.
Getting diagnosed with autism, ADHD, right?
Yep.
Park that to one side for 2 minutes. There's also more entrepreneurs than there's ever been, okay? And more people bringing success for their own life there's ever been. Go back to this conversation with the schooling system. The people who are in the schooling system would be deemed as the geniuses, like the grade A students, right? They don't ask for help, right? In the schooling system, it's looked upon negatively if you're asked for help, okay? Whereas people who struggle, and there's a direct correlation with the amount of entrepreneurs who have came from struggle, because these people from a young age have had no other option but ask for help.
Yep.
And they're used to asking for help, and that is the job of an entrepreneur. Whereas the people that the schooling system would see as the geniuses, like, no, he's fine, he's a genius, he doesn't need to ask for help. There's very little of them that become entrepreneurial because they don't have it in them to ask for help.
Aye.
And they're capped at whatever they're going to be in that corporate world. So I think there's a correlation between the autism, the ADHD, and also the amount of entrepreneurs that are then coming through.
Aye, I agree with you. I don't know what the fuck was in the water in the 80s, by the way. Because we're all mental these days. Know what I mean?
I know.
Either
It's
it
the same
didn't
with-
exist before or...
Look at all the successful people who I never knew before had dyslexia.
Yeah.
But it's a real thing.
It is a real
Yeah.
thing.
I used to get frustrated when some people were... Two of my daughters in particular have got their challenges as well, and so have I.
Yeah.
Right? And I see so much of myself in them. In fact, it was actually going through the diagnosis process for autism for one of my girls that I'm sitting there and I'm staring at the lassie doing this part of the process. And she looked at me and she says, "Have you ever been tested for this?" I says, "I think I And she's like, I think you should. It's like, fuck. New superpower unlocked.
Yeah.
Right? I don't love the titles, but I think it's important to gain a level of understanding, because one of the things that really annoyed me before is there was somebody in my life who looked at one of my daughters and would get really pissed off with her a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, what do you need? Do you need her to be rolled in here in a wheelchair, unable to communicate, before you go, oh, that's a shame?
Mm-hmm.
Not all disabilities are visible.
Yeah.
Yes.
People have got a lot going on under the hood, do you know what I mean? So there's a quote by Albert Einstein. He says there's a fine line between genius and madness, right? And that guy at school, or that girl at school who got all the straight A's and was very clever, they're a senior exec at Hewlett Packard now, right? Earning that 6-figure income and barely getting by on the quality of life that they've now boxed themselves into, where they're fucked if it falls apart, right?
Because they've capped.
Yep.
Whereas I get thrown out of school, and the majority of people I know who've been successful are not academic. Nothing wrong with being academic,
Yeah.
but they're not academic people.
Yeah.
But they're more creative.
They're free thinkers, they're creative,
They
they're
are.
problem
Yeah.
solvers, they're people who have got a lot more of a risk appetite, who have taken chances, who've pushed the boat out a little bit, who've done things that they were told they couldn't do despite being told they couldn't do them.
Yeah.
This comes back to a thing for me, right? Because I was brought up in a really loving household, really supportive. My mum and dad always said to me, you can be whatever you want to be. But at that point, I didn't believe them. I was hearing it, but I was like, yeah, okay. And then you were at school, and I had my guidance teacher, and I was really good at languages, but I wasn't very good at maths or everything like that. So I went to my guidance teacher. It came at the time as, what are you going to do with your career? What's your future looking like? And she turned around and says to me, you should just go and get a wee job behind a desk somewhere, Lynn. And I'm like, but I wanted to go to university maybe and do my languages. And she just looked at me and was like, no, university is not for you. So I believed her, forgot everything that my mum and dad had told me. And I went, right, okay, I'll just go and get a job then. But moving forward to me being now 55 and working with a mentor who is telling me, have some belief in yourself, because you have managed to do X, Y, and Z, albeit later in life, and you've got possibly more to give. That's really hard to take on at 55 years old when you've been all through those years giving it, I was just really suitable for a desk job.
You'd been better having that advice you're getting now.
But
40 years ago.
But yeah, what my other point was, what part of your life do you stop believing in yourself?
Well, let's look at this, right? So you are by and large a product of your environment, right? So if you're born into a household where the attitude towards money is negative, you don't talk about money. Money's evil. People with money have conned people. Money's not for people like us. That's what I grew up with. Right? So before you
money
realise,
doesn't bring you happiness.
What is it Kevin Bridges says? He says, it's funny how you reach that day when you realise your dad's an arsehole. And they don't actually know it all. Right? Well, before you realise your dad's an arsehole, you're kind of buying into everything they say.
Yes.
Because that's the only reference point you've got.
You've got, yeah.
Right? So it's up to you, before your kids get into school and the world starts to fuck them up, to actually get the right message across to them.
Yeah,
right?
I mean.
But it's not just the right message, it's, are you living that message?
Yes.
It's funny how you see a lot of overweight parents with overweight kids as well.
Yeah.
It's no surprise.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about influencing their wee minds and being consistent with your message. It's not that they're going to get it right just because you say it.
No.
But when you're consistent with your message and you're living that message, then eventually they're going to come back to it.
Yeah.
So one of my daughters has got a wee pal she's not a pal anymore, right? And we wonder, listen, that wee lassie's no good. Stay consistent with the message. Told her why. She went back to her. Proven again. And then it happened again. And now, because the consistent message has been there, guess what? Now your daughter's got a bit more trust in your decision making.
Yes.
Because
And her
you've
own
stayed
experience.
strong.
And she's like that, wait a minute, there maybe are talking sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know we're jumping a lot of topics against you, Lynn. You're coming up with these brilliant points this morning, right? My guidance teacher said to me one day, the usual, you're going to end up dead or in jail, right? And I remember years later
Good
I'd started.
Yeah.
But I liked the guy and he was quite supportive, right? We'll come back to the reference points in a minute. But he says to me, "You're going to end up dead in jail." So then at one point, I remember driving by him, and I had a big S-Class Mercedes at the time.
Oh,
No way, I don't fucking against it.
I love it.
And he also says to me, "I hope to God that one day you drive by me and give me the finger in your big motor." So I was like, that.
Perfect
this is
opportunity.
I've been
perfect.
waiting this day. So I go by the guy and I'm like, fuck you. He didn't recognise me. So he's like, oh, fuck you. He's ready to start fighting with me. I'm like, I felt dead guilty. So I'm phoning the school later on like that. It's me. And he's like, what?
Are we talking about this guy for
Oh,
20 years
man.
ago?
Back to what I was saying a minute ago. Your wains have got you as a reference point, right? So yourself, me as well, right? Then you get into the world. Your school teachers are influencing you. Your friend group's influencing you. The people around you are influencing you, right? But if you'd come up with different influences, even in the workplace, who you surround yourself with is who you become. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yes.
So if you want to rewire your thinking and change your beliefs, well, start with who you're surrounding yourself with and the sort of shit you're taking in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, if your pals are always talking about, if your 4 or 5 best pals are talking about nights out all the time, you're probably the next person who's talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Which is why when you start changing your chat, you start to lose friends.
Yes.
So what is the direction of your life and who do you need to have around you to support that direction? If you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. I want to be surrounded with people who are more successful than me
Yes.
because I want to learn what they've got to say.
Yeah.
I want to put my ego to the side and take on what they're saying. So it doesn't matter if you're 55 or 41 or whatever. Who are you spending time with? What are you taking in? Because that will colour your world very differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our kids, we've got that responsibility with them
Yeah.
to make sure that we're being a good example to them.
Yeah.
Giving them the roots to grow, wings to fly, as I've got tattooed in one of my
Yeah.
arms.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it definitely hits home as well. See when that then actually becomes a reality, because I know certainly you hear it. You know, you hear all the sayings exactly. You know, you become your surroundings, but and then you know when you're trying to transition into that. But see when then you actually do get there and you do kind of start hanging about with the right people, it gets reinforced even more because you're like, shit, this is actually real. And then you start to see changes in yourself.
Aye.
You know, and then it encourages you even more.
Yeah.
To want to start hanging about with the kind of people and
Correct.
start growing. But I think to get to that, because let's be honest, you can read all there's a million self-help, motivational, whatever books out there. You can read them all you want, but until you actually start implementing some of these things and start seeing some of the results,
Yeah.
that's when things
That's
start to
when
change.
the light bulb goes on.
Yeah.
Aye. So if you're around people who don't have money, then you start to develop a belief that there's no money moving.
Yeah.
But then when you get around a community like you guys are in right now, you start to realise money's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just not coming to you.
Yes.
So then we go to the next level of how do I make it come to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to something we touched on a minute ago, so I just want to close this loop. The fine line between genius and madness. Do you know, the outliers, the crazy ones, as Steve Jobs called them, Silicon Valley would not exist without Asperger's, autism, ADHD, neurodiversity. It wouldn't exist. We need the people who think differently, the people who are told that you're bad, sit in your place, shut up, stop being disruptive, you're too much. Fuck you just can't handle the people who make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
Because it's the people who think differently that actually create, they innovate, they drive technology forward, they drive progress forward, they take risks that allows the world to advance, while everybody else is sitting comfortably doing their part and being good little boys and girls. Fuck you, right? It's the people who are different who create progress and change. So I am fucking proud to be different.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Going back to Mayhem,
Yes.
I'm a customer. I approach you. Talk me through the journey and what I would expect if I approached you.
This is a good podcast. There's a lot of good notes. I don't know how long we've been gone for. So you come to Mayhem, you want to talk to us.
Yeah.
Well, here's the first thing we're going to do. I'm not going to say here's how much it costs, right? Because I'm not interested in just taking your money. That's not the way we operate, right? I've had businesses in the past where it's been like any customer's a good customer.
Yeah.
No anymore. I've learned enough to know that's different, right? I've had a couple of different vantage points.
Yeah.
The first vantage point is the fact that I don't just want any customer. I want people who actually do a good job in their market, who are respectable companies, who are doing well, right? I want people who've got the right ambitions and mindset and who want to actually make a bit of a difference, right? It's the kind of people I want. Now, how does a window cleaner fit that bill? Because do you know what? See if they're doing good by their clients and they're a driven company who want to grow.
Yeah.
That's the important part. They want to actually create more. Now you're talking my language and we can talk, right? But you can't just come and buy for us. I don't want to do business like that. My first priority with you is not to tell you how much your service costs. My first priority with you is to say, listen, Lynn, first thing I'm going to do is ask you a lot of questions, because I cannot possibly recommend a course of action to you unless I know everything I need to know about your business. I want to know how you operate, what you've tried, what you're inspired by, what's worked, what's not worked, who you're using for your ads right now, what you've invested in your marketing before. I want to get a bit of your mindset towards how you do marketing, because I'm not setting you up to sell you a $2,000 shitty little thing. I'm setting you up for a lifelong partnership where we can go to war for you and help you achieve your goals. So by finding out everything I can about you and your business on that initial chat, then I can take my experience and I can turn and say, do you know what? Here's what I recommend you do. This is the course of action I recommend. And based on your ability financially, based on what you've got to invest, we can chop and change that package to focus on the most important part first. Because what I might quote you might be beyond your reach. By the way, I don't want people being scared off by that, because we are not overly expensive. But we're not cheap either. We're very fair, mid-market, right? But with that being said, if I give you an option like the two guys yesterday, that's one of them over the line, and I'll get the other one later the day without a doubt, because I know what the guy's trying to achieve, and he knows that I know. A lot of marketers, a lot of business owners want the customer to understand what they do. I want my customer to feel understood and to know that I'm the solution to their problems. And there's a big difference there. The customer wants to feel understood. The business owner wants the customer to understand. If we flip that, and your job then becomes to resonate with the customer and have them feel like you are what they've been looking for, then it's an easy transition for them. Personal branding helps a lot with that too, because when people already know who you are, a lot of the work's been done before the show starts. By the time you chat to them, they're not sitting there saying, well, why should I work with you? They're saying, please take me on, because I'd love the opportunity to work with you. And that's what I like.
That's the difference.
I like people to know who I am, and then I want to take the time to understand who they are.
Right.
And when I know that, then I'm going to suggest a course of action. And then, like the guys I dealt with yesterday, I'm going to say, look, one of the guys, a bit more limited financially, he only started a few months ago. He's doing well. You know, turnover-wise, he's doing about 18 grand a month as a startup. Young guy, brilliant, well done. Profit-wise, not so shiny. So I'm going to help him on the consulting side of things. I'm going to look at things from that point of view with him and help him there. But with him, his ability to invest in a monthly retainer for his ads and social, plus the upfront cost of his branding, his website, it's a wee bit steep for him. So I says, okay, if that's the case, then we can work out a plan for you to be able to pay this up. Or we can look at the contract you come into with us for. I don't really do contracts, but we can do a contract longer term where we spread the cost of this investment over that long term. You know, or of all the things that we can do for you, here's one here that's going to get you quicker results. Let's forget the rest. We'll come back to that. Let's do this right now. And the guy said to me, he says, how come you're not charging me the normal price? So he said, Billy, you just told me that your normal price is this, but you're coming in at that. Why? I says, because I want your business long term. And I'm willing to take a little financial haircut up front because I like you. I know what we can do for you. And I also know you're new to this and a little bit more skeptical and wary because of your level of inexperience. So let's show you the goods. And then when we've got your trust, then we accelerate. And then we go for there. So to answer your question, first thing you do with us is we have a really good conversation. We get that relationship established, and I find out everything I can before I then tell you, here's what I suggest you do next.
I think you say that's flipping into its head. There's a lot of people out there with any walk of business are trying to tell you something and say this is the best thing since sliced bread. Whereas what you've said there is literally the opposite. I'm not going to tell you anything until I understand your business.
What else you want.
Which I suppose in your world, how difficult is that to understand businesses when you're dealing with various different types of businesses?
So I love my quotes. Richard Branson said something a number of years ago. He says that there's several key factors in any business that will make it a success. Once you understand those factors, you can make a success at any business. I like that.
That's really good.
You know, so when you know what you're talking about in terms of most things have got the same genetic makeup when it comes to business, right? So it doesn't necessarily matter the market, but the market might adjust the means of marketing and advertising that we do,
Yeah.
or how we approach that business. But this is why I do the sales in my business. I've had people in the past who've been salespeople. It never works.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the experience. They can recommend what they think would be a good idea, but what are they recommending that based on? Not a lot.
Yeah.
They'll come and ask me anyway. So because my goal with the business isn't to have hundreds of clients, it's to have good clients paying me a good retainer for a great return. I speak to everybody up front myself.
Yep.
So I go on the phone.
Yeah.
I take the time to talk to you. Now, once we're in, now you're dealing with a team, but you're doing it under my strategy, and then we'll have a catch up now and then.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think that's a really good approach. The man at the helm of the business is the first guy, the first port of contact, because especially, and you'll know this, especially in the property world, there's a lot of the education that tells you is like you don't need to do anything. You just get that guy to do it, and that guy to do it, and that guy to do it, and the guy at the top doesn't need to do much. But in fact, it's the complete opposite. You know what I mean? You look at the guy, Mustache, CEO of Boss Pizza. I don't know if you follow him.
I mean, yep.
Right? You look at him like he's like yourself. He's the main man. He's the company owner.
He's all over it.
He's all over it. He's the guy at the helm, driving the company. There's a lot of people who maybe have a different approach. It's like, well, I've made it now. I get these people to do it. Where you're like, this is my company. I'm absolutely the face of it, driving it.
Aye.
Depends
on the level you want to grow to as well.
Yeah.
If you're happy coasting along an average level and making a good living,
Yeah.
great. Listen, some people shouldn't have big companies.
Yeah.
Some people financially would be better off fitting boilers
Yeah.
and making 5 to 10 grand a month
Yep.
than taking on staff and making 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So it depends on what you really want. And, like Mushtaq, for example, I don't know what his overall strategy is. We had him in our offices a while ago on one of our podcasts. It was Craig that interviewed him. I don't know what his game plan is. He might be working towards an exit for all I know. I don't know, right? But if you are working towards an exit and you're going in very aggressive right now to take it to that point of exit, or to take it to a point where you do systemize, level out, and then build a team and processes in place to sustain it, great. But being the face of it and being boots on the ground at the start allows you to understand every moving part of what's going on. And I think when you start a business, it's important to do that.
Yes.
Because, like, for example, every person in my team, I know their jobs intimately.
Yep.
And I don't think they always love that, Claire. Because when it comes to the ad side, I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The social side, I know what I'm talking about. Website, nobody can pull the wool over my eyes, and I know how long a job takes to complete.
Yeah.
So because of that, I can lean in a lot more. Whereas if you didn't know that, and you take people's word for it,
yeah, you'd be like, that's fine.
and you've got your own team telling you, "Oh, I'm still working on it." It's like, no, you're fucking no, because I'd have done that in a fucking 24-hour period. Get it done.
You get a
Let's
handle
go.
on all aspects of the business.
Absolutely.
Every department.
So I think at first, any business owner, you're the janitor, the cook, the cleaner, the marketer, and the finance person, and you've got to be. But then as you start to grow through the levels, then you start to replace yourself, and that's smart, because then you get to the point where you're working on the business, not in the business. So I was at a conference years ago, let's say there was 1,000 people in the room, and it was the Australian billionaire Brad Sugars on stage. And Brad said, put your hand up if you own a business. Every hand in the room went up. He says, okay, keep your hand up if you can disappear for 6 months and nothing changes. Most of the hands went down. He says, keep your hand up if you can go away for 6 months, not tell anybody, and the business grows. There was 3 people left, and I wasn't one of them. And he says, well done. That's the entrepreneurs. That's the real business owners, right? And that's where you want to get to.
Yeah.
But there is an element of walk before you can run in that sense, because you have to learn your business, know your business, understand your business. How can you innovate if you don't know the basic building blocks of what you actually do for a living?
Yeah.
That comes right back to what I said at the beginning about doing it differently now.
Yeah.
I couldn't have coped probably with loads of people coming at me with houses that they wanted to sell, and I'd be like that. Oh my God, I'd have panicked. So I think why else I would do it differently now is because I've gained that little bit of experience and knowledge, and now I feel comfortable
100%,
in that world,
Absolutely. My own business, I've got my own plans as well. And right now I am very, very aggressively driven to achieve certain outcomes, to achieve certain targets of monthly recurring revenue, contracted revenue. when I reach a certain benchmark, I will step back a little bit. And over time, I will nurture the right people to take over the roles that I do. Because that's no easy shoes to fill.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's no me inflating my own ego. It's just no easy shoes to fill.
Yeah.
So in time, I'll start to train the right people to replace me. And then I'll take more of a real CEO role and direct the overall effort.
Yeah.
While I put my attention and focus on other interests that I've got.
Yeah.
And then in time, I may end up selling the whole thing or just stepping back and have it be an incredible lifestyle business that runs without me doing it with somebody else in the CEO chair.
Yeah. I think it's also great to note as well, what you just said a minute ago, is that it is okay to not grow if that's you know what you're comfortable with your lifestyle, because there's some people that can have a very good lifestyle, better than the one they've got just now, maybe in a corporate type role.
Yeah.
They're maybe not set, let's be honest, not everybody's set up to be an entrepreneur, right? But there is also a halfway house.
Yeah.
Where you can, whether it's fit boilers or whatever it is, or have a wee shop or whatever, you can still have, you know, there's a guy I know that's got a wee shop, right? And does very, very well, just as a one-man band with a couple of staff, and provides a great lifestyle. So I think it's important to note as well, there is also a halfway house.
Yeah, absolutely.
I honestly, small isn't bad. Right?
No.
Yeah.
I used to be very impressed with myself because of the city centre office and loads of staff and big name on the door, and you know, we were out there and everything else. Who gives a shit? That's your ego talking. That's the same as having your name on the company. Nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
It's not about that. But some people have to go through that ego process as well to get there. I would rather run light and lean and profitable than big and noisy and skint.
Yeah.
So this entrepreneurial no man's land in the middle, where on one end of it you've got the exit or you've got the lifestyle. On the other end of it, you're just starting out, and then there's this fucking desert in the middle and it's shit, right? Good friend of mine, I'll not say his name, but his company went down last year, right? It was let's just call it an electrical company, right? And the electrical maintenance, and the majority of his customers were letting agents and estate agents, right? He would have been better off financially being out in a van on his own, doing a number of jobs. He'd have easily cleared an average early six-figure income doing that. Instead, he'd over 30 employees, over 20 vans on the roads, scooters, vans, all of it, which meant more need for branding, more need for financial people to chase late invoices, more need for infrastructure, admin, technology, CRM systems. It got very clunky and very difficult to run, right? They were doing about 300 grand a month, which also meant that when the agents that were supposed to pay them didn't pay, knew they were in a massive deficit every month, right? So where he would have been better running about in a van with an apprentice and cleaning up an early six-figure income, what actually happened is he was skirting along for years, not getting paid a penny for his own company, but sacrificing his blood, sweat, tears, family, life, relationships, all of it, divorce, everything, only to find himself bankrupt at the end of 2024.
Yeah.
So the real question is, are you willing to take that risk? And how do you mitigate the risk to make sure your whole fucking life doesn't collapse in the process?
Yeah.
You know? So there's a lot of sense to actually playing small, but playing profitable.
Yeah.
But for those who want to go bigger, go for it. But no matter what level you play it, you need the right marketing systems, peer group, all the key things that we're talking about in this podcast.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think to bring it home, I think to end in that, I think that shows you if you want to grow to that stage, then it's important to having somebody like yourself and Mayhem Marketing on board.
Yeah.
Because without that and you grow to that stage, you're going to probably find it very, very difficult.
Aye. Even if you want to be small but profitable, like none of us get into business to skirt along on the edges of what could be possible.
Yeah.
So even if you're wanting to play small, but still invest in the right marketing, still get the right peer group, mentorship, support.
Play small, but play smart.
Play small, play smart, exactly. And marketing's never an expense, it's always an investment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, let's bring it home in that, and let's get you back on in 6 months' time, and let's see where Mayhem Marketing is wet in that period of time.
And if anybody wants to have a chat with us about any of it, follow me at I am Billy Farrell. Or come to mayhemmarketing.com, get us on socials. We're putting out content every day, giving people advice. We don't ask anything for it, but I tell you what, by watching it, you start to realise where you're missing and what could be possible. if anybody wants to reach out for a chat with me, first of all, don't do it unless you're actually serious about doing business, because I'll know it a mile away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're serious about doing business and you want to have a no obligation chat, a friendly chat to see if right now or later we can work together, reach out. I'm very approachable. We'll have a conversation and we'll see what's possible for you.
Well, we'll put all your contacts on our.
Yeah. I'll put all the links in the show notes below.
Thank you. Brilliant. Great stuff, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.